Hi, it's Joey, and this is part 2 of our time with Liz Miller, the episode entitled How Does a Widowed Mom in Her 30s View Life and God, part 2. Thanks for listening to Pastor With No Answers, and don't forget to go to pastorwithnoanswers.com. Got an old blog post that I wrote a long time ago, closer to when Joshua died. We also have ways you can contribute to this podcast, different levels of giving, each with its own set of perks now. Now, I'm just delighted for you to listen to this podcast for free. But for those that want to take it a step further and even just make a one-time donation of love, however you want to do it, go on there and do it. Just hit the contribute button at pastorwithnoanswers.com and look at the different options. And now, part 2 of our time with Liz Miller. You've heard a lot of this story by now after listening to part 1. Let me invite you a bit more on the inside of the Svensson household when we get that phone call. You know what Priscilla and I were doing? We're getting ready to go drive 2 hours to see Emery. That's right. It's going to go see the fellows rock out in Savannah, Georgia. Now, Toby nor Matt knew Liz that well at the time, but Toby knew her a bit through his wife Jessica, so obviously Jessica tells Toby why Priscilla and Joey won't be there. No big deal, right? I mean, he never even met Joshua. Wrong. Death rocks us, man. It just rocks us. A young guy with kids on the way to a picnic with his family 1 second, and the very next second, gone? Gone? Now, that's something that your mind just can't roll with. And that's where what plays in my head, the song, comes in that you hear in the background. It's a song that was written by Matt and Toby from the perspective of, what if I lost my spouse? What would that look like to me? What would my world look like? This Matt and Toby album is one of my favorites, by the way. Shameless plug. It's Matt and Toby, the band. Well, we've all had these thoughts, but hopefully me and you, the listener, won't have to experience losing our one and only so prematurely. But the fact, we'll never know. We don't know how many days we have with the people we love. Listen to Liz's story. She's learned this firsthand. For many of us that haven't lost like this, let this time with Liz be a reminder to all of us to cherish what we have while we have it. Liz was just telling Jared how I picked very random times to ask her questions about Joshua, like really happy parties and stuff like that. I will say that I at least made the mistake twice when we all still worked together. I would ask you questions and you were just like, thanks, I'm crying now. I'm going to have a crying day.
Wow.
Like, talk about an unsafe working environment.
You made me feel so safe. And I was his assistant. I'm like, you're ruining your own, like...
Hey, why didn't those emails go out?
Your productivity just went down the drain that day.
So you mean to tell me you're going to use your husband again as an excuse for not getting your damn job done?
People call or email for counseling. I'm like, at least you have a husband, damn it. Don't email him.
Wow.
All right, so continuing with some of Jared's theological reflections, I know you had talked about this at one point. And I know we have both heard different perspectives, like in the Seacoast world, because I've been able to be a part of conversations either through you telling Priscilla and I what someone said or being a part of the conversation myself. But do you like the thought of Joshua being completely stoked and happy and having a super fun time right now? Or do you like it a little better for him to be like, gosh, I feel so bad for my wife. I love her so much. I love my kids. And I hate the fact that I'm not able to be with them. Or does it just not matter?
I mean, I feel like it depends on what day you ask me. for the most part, I would definitely hope that he's happy and he's not worrying about anything, because it's not going to change anything. And he knows that we're going to be, all of us as believers are going to be reunited at some point, and it's like a blink of an eye. So I hope that he's not, especially as a husband, they want to be that caretaker. I would hate to think that he is up there fretting and worried and blaming himself and all that stuff. There's no point. I mean, it's not going to change anything. So I hope he's up there happy and highlighting Jesus's hair and, painting the walls and stuff. And, but there's days where I also think, okay, I would like for you to just see this one moment in time and realize how hard it is and feel just a little bit bad for me. I have those days too, but I really don't ever get in a
that makes sense. That's your best friend.
Yeah.
So there's no way you can not have those feelings of, I just want you to know that this is hard.
Yeah.
Or I wish that I could communicate this with you. Like how unbelievable would it be if you got 1 hour conversations with him yearly and you could just say, it's really good talking to you. It would be horrible.
That would be horrible.
Just because you would miss him so badly?
Yes, I could not. I could not do that.
What if you could send a text?
No. There needs to be no...
Or voicemail.
Yeah. No, Joey, you'll read it. Listen to it.
Right.
I would not want any of that. In order for me, like I would always say to you, Joey, like, I need to be able to function. So in order for me to function, it needs to be a clear cut and dry thing. Now, the sweet blessings of like the supernatural things that happen, those are sweet blessings because they're not definite. They're not tangible.
Right.
I can't like see it or really like defend it, except for that I believe that those things that have happened to us are true. But a text message or a yearly conversation, I would not do that. I would hate it.
Yeah, that makes
as much
sense.
as I would want it, I would hate it, and I wouldn't be able to function. I wouldn't be able to move forward in my life if that was a possibility.
Right.
So yeah, I want him to be happy. I don't even want him to necessarily know how bad it is, but there are days where I do want him to just not feel bad, but no.
Just be aware.
Yeah, just be aware, like, okay, this is kind of tough. This kind of sucks. I will kick your ass when I get to heaven. But, I definitely don't have any hatred or evil thoughts. I don't have, like, a voodoo doll of him, and I don't want him to be unhappy.
Yeah. Jared.
So Liz, do you believe that he's fully conscious right now, or do you think he's, like, still in a sleep state and we'll all get to heaven at the same time?
Because there are some Christians that believe Joshua's sleeping right now.
That was one of the... I mean, I asked Joey to give me some of the questions ahead of time just so I wouldn't be shocked. And when it said, do you hope that he's sleeping? I just laughed out loud and I was like, I hope that boy has insomnia right now.
Nice.
I hope that he is suffering from insomnia and he can't sleep. And then I laughed at myself, and then I thought, no, I hope he is sleeping because he's making up for all the lost time, because he never slept when he was here on earth. He was like, go, 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 go. I don't really care if he's sleeping or if he's in heaven. Those types of like theological questions are like fun to go back and forth and talk about, but it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter to me. If he's sleeping, he's sleeping. As long as I know that his soul and that his salvation is with Jesus, whether he's asleep or he's in heaven or if he's in the new earth or the second earth or the fifth earth, like I know that I have that peace that he's fine. Like, I'm not worried about him.
Right. Now, there's some, and I don't want to get into, Jared could explain from a physics standpoint, or I don't know if even, I don't even know what kind of science it is, but Jared could actually explain the nuts and bolts of this sort of theory. But there are some Christian scientists that believe that when you die as a 89-year-old woman, you will appear in heaven immediately when Joshua appeared in heaven right after his car accident, to where he'll look at you and be like, what are you doing here? What happened? Like, I just got in a car wreck. What happened to you? And you'd be like, you just got here? And there wasn't like this
That's crazy
huge
to
passage of time for Joshua.
Yeah.
But for him, it was, I got in a car wreck. I immediately went to heaven. And there's my wife.
That correlates with Randy Alcorn's book, Heaven, doesn't it?
I don't remember what he says about that. Maybe he opens it up as a possibility. But that means every Christian who's ever existed ever will have the same, oh my gosh, we're all here. Grandma, you died a long time ago.
No, Joshua's going to be like, you look like hell. You aged. And he's going to be like,
look at me,
I'm
holla.
still looking good. The boy got highlights like a week before he pieced out. So he's probably going to be thinking, I still look good. You aged, Liz.
Jared, Joshua comes into our office because his restaurant is basically, we share the same space. He comes into the office, looks in this mirror that I'm pointing to right now, and for people that don't know him, they'll be like, wow, that's kind of not cool. But if you knew if you knew Joshua, it was very endearing, and it just, for some reason, it was almost like a welcoming arrogance almost. He thought he looked good, and I mean, Liz will vouch for him.
Yeah.
But Liz, so Joshua looks in the mirror. I'm sitting there minding my own business, doing my work. Priscilla's doing the same thing. He just got highlights in his hair, and he's just like, man, I look good, man.
I would just ignore him. I mean, he sent me pictures of the foils in his hair that one of our friends from church did, and I was just like, you're such a nut.
Was he a pretty boy?
Oh yeah, he was metro
right.
Pretty boy.
I know the type.
Oh yeah,
I'm not
he
one
was
of them.
very well manicured.
Nice. Metrosexual, they say, right?
Yeah, he actually had an ex-girlfriend give him a book about being a metrosexual because he was. I thought he was gay when I first met him. I was like,
wow,
it's cool. We can be friends, you know.
Yeah, you thought you had no chance.
I did. I was just like,
you weren't out of his league. You were just in a different league.
I was in a.
He's playing for a different team.
I was playing for one team, and I really thought he was playing for another one because he opened Abercrombie and Fitch stores, and I was like, it's cool. You can be like my gay best friend. And he actually got mad after about 3 months. He was just like, I am not gay. I don't like boys. I like girls. I like you. And he kind of got the serious tone, and he was like, stop saying
so
that.
Romantic.
Yeah.
All right, so take a little turn here, a little more serious, but it's a question that I just have to ask. Knowing what you know now, having experienced the last 4 years, understanding how all of that has affected you, try to put yourself in a place where you show up to the hospital and you lost your family. Like, everybody's gone. And seriously, because I just think, what at that point, how would you have reacted different? Because you eventually realize your husband's gone, and thank the Lord that I have my kids.
Yeah.
Now, that wasn't I've got my kids, so I'm okay. But it was, thank the Lord I still have them. What if you lost it all?
Yeah, I definitely clung to the fact that I had 2 little blessings still.
That were his, too.
That were his. They were my life, and that is what kept me alive. And I always say never, because you just don't know what's going to happen in your life. But even now, I could say that I would have been... There would have been no reason for me to live, no matter how much I love Jesus, no matter how much I would want to be a testimony to people of how, because I mean, I went through grief share. There's women that lost their husbands, later lost one kid, later lost the other kid, and they're the last person in their family alive, and they can still smile and be all excited about seeing them in heaven.
Yeah.
Even in my state of having lost Joshua, I would have been completely gone. I don't think that I would have lasted.
Do you think you would have been suicidal?
Absolutely.
Do you so this is just super morbid, but I can go here with you. Do you think you would have killed yourself? I mean, and obviously this is not knowing how God would have interceded.
Right. God probably would have interceded just like he did when Joshua died to help me focus on my kids and help me function from day to day. But in my flesh, without knowing what God would have done, how he would have interceded. If my kids and my husband had been killed in that car accident, there is no way that I would have wanted to keep living. I would have had nothing to live for. And
Right.
some Christians would say, well, you have so much to live for. You're still here for a reason. And I would have just said, bullshit, like, take me now. I would have probably, I have no like shame in saying I probably would have tried to kill myself in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Whether it was starving myself and not intentionally, like it might not have even been an intentional, like harm to myself. It might have just been, like you just.
Like a willful neglect of yourself, taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Jared, within a week of Josh was passing, the same friend that Liz referred to in the last episode that stayed with her for 2 weeks, her and Liz were both in the car. I don't know if George was with y'all too, or maybe with your mom, but Hannah Ray was definitely in the car. And Jared, I mean, this is just one of those things that I just cannot escape a supernatural explanation. To me, there's no way around it. So they're driving to Liz's place, which she had to drive past the scene of the accident.
No, we're driving away from it.
Oh,
so
away
we were
from
on
it.
the exact path.
Okay. So basically they're driving the exact path that Joshua took to his death. And driving past that exact spot, Hannah Ray, who is not 2 years old.
Wait, how long had it happened?
Within a week.
Had it happened?
So 5 days ago, 4 days ago, 6 days ago. Or maybe was it right after the funeral? So it could have been a little bit past a week, but not 2 weeks. So driving through that exact same spot, Hannah Ray erupts out of nowhere, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." And you say that it was in a way of she saw him.
Absolutely. Nobody had said anything. I wasn't talking much. I was pretty much just like a blank stare 24/7, except when I was trying to put a smile on for my kids. So I'm driving. Hannah can't see my face. I'm not talking. Jen's not talking. And as we drive by, it's silent. We don't even have the radio on. And she just like, in the sweetest, most like excited, elated voice, like she was like when your dad walks in the door after being home from work all day, she was just like, "Daddy, Daddy," and so excited. And she's looking to the right, and I was just like, what?
And just for context, she had not been talking. She wasn't going, "La, la, 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 daddy, daddy."
Right.
I mean,
no,
right?
She didn't talk much at all. Neither of the, well, George was like 7 weeks old, so he wasn't talking yet. But she had not mentioned him. None of us had. I asked everybody to just not say anything about him or use his name or say dad or daddy, just so she could physically heal before she had to emotionally heal. And so nobody had been talking about it. Nobody had been using words. I hadn't showed her pictures. I didn't want her to see any pictures or anything like that. So for her, when we drove by and she got so excited that I know she saw him, she was just so excited, screaming, "Daddy, Daddy." And it was quiet, and my friend Jen looked at me and she goes, she knew my doubt. She was like, she said that. And I said, "Are you sure?" Like I would have never been able to really be 100% sure if I was in the car with Hannah Ray by myself, because it was just it was awesome. It was such a good feeling, because it was like Joshua wanted her to see him. He had to have been smiling. He had to have looked healthy and okay, and he wanted her to have that be the last sight that she saw of him, and not have it be of him dead in the seat in front of her bleeding.
And that's something you'll always be able to tell Hannah Ray too as she grows up. Just like, I am 100% sure, or 99, however you want to word it, but I'm sure you saw your dad.
Yeah,
and that was my question. Have you told her this yet?
No.
Okay.
So she's basically William's age. So she's coming up. She's coming up on 6. So how
Right.
How are you handling, like, how do you approach that as a mother? Both of your kids, they were the last two to interact with Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Hannah Ray is old enough to where if you laid it out, she would understand what you're saying. So how far have you gone? How protective of you are you of them with conversations? And
Yeah.
do you have any fears of people saying certain things in front of them, or just where are you at with all that?
Yeah, I mean, it took a while for me to even want to talk about any of it with her, but I know for a few years nobody had ever said anything to her about a car accident. Nobody had ever, and that was kind of under my instruction. Like, I didn't want people to talk to her about how he died, that it was in the car accident, that they were in the car. And it wasn't till years later, and I wrote about it in my blog, so I don't want to, like...
No spoilers.
Well, no spoilers, but I also want to make sure that I, get the story straight, too. So, but I do write about it in the blog that she eventually, within the last, I would say, year, she's been asking questions and saying different things that I know people aren't talking to her about, because people who goes up to a 5.5-year-old and says, so did you know your dad died in a car accident? So, I mean, like, she's been very protected in the vocabulary around Joshua going to heaven. She, her teacher last week went and got ashes for Ash Wednesday, and the kids were like, oh, what's that? And Hannah Ray yells, oh, it's a cross. And she said, yeah, do you know what it is for? And, Hannah Ray's like, Jesus and God. And all of a sudden, Hannah Ray's like, Jesus and God take care of my daddy in heaven. So that's where her mindset is. It's not on what happened or how it happened. We've just focused she knows that he's not here, but we don't say he's dead.
Right.
Now, within the last year, she has started to grasp that understanding, and she knows that he died. She does know that now, but we don't talk about how or anything like that. But she has said different things to make me think that she's more inquisitive, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I answered the question.
No, you totally did. So, that's probably the hardest part.
Yeah, I don't like it at all. I don't like when she asks questions about it.
Well, and I mean, so you lost your husband, but you're an adult. You're, I obviously people can differ on this theologically, but there's like an innocence of kids.
Yeah.
And we quickly see their sinful nature, but still they're in a category of, why did they have to go through that?
Yeah.
Like, I think all people that are close to you, we say the same thing about you, but then it's like it's an extra level with kids. It's like, yeah, but them. So, I mean, is that, would you say here in 2016, the hardest part for you is seeing what they're going without?
That's been the hardest part from the beginning. Like George, the first week of school, I just had a parent-teacher conference, and his teacher said something about dads, and he, in this sweet little voice, was like, oh, my dad's in heaven. And that's like their reaction.
Yeah.
It's a positive. My dad's with Jesus. We talk about how they hang out together, and we'll get to see him one day, but he's just in heaven. So it is a peaceful thought process for them. They don't have like a sad process. The sad process that they go through is watching me cry. Like, if I wasn't a hot mess, they would, and I try to keep it together. But if they didn't see that, they wouldn't even be exposed to that part of it. It's kind of peaceful for them. But from the very beginning, that was the only thing, I should say probably the main thing that bothered me, was that I'm an adult. I'm grateful for the years that I had with Joshua. I, of course, wish that it didn't happen. I am still glad that, even knowing what was going to happen, I still would have wanted to marry him, and I still would have wanted to have his kids and all that stuff. But from the beginning, the biggest part was, why do my kids have to go through that? Why do they have to be the ones that have to say, oh, my daddy's in heaven? Whether they're saying it in a happy voice or not, it kills me. And it, like, that's when I put on that face and just I'm a really good actress and don't show how it makes me feel, and then I walk out of her classroom and I'm crying in the hallways and teachers are looking at me like, oh, what's wrong with that girl? And
That's the widow.
That's the widow, and I try to keep it together when I'm with them, but like on, like muffins for moms, I'm okay, but when they do donuts for dads, I'm like, that's stupid.
You guys are so dumb with your extracurricular family shit.
Yeah, I get bitter and I cry as I walk out of her classroom and stuff like that. So the thing I cry about the most is, I think just the post-traumatic stress of the day, the tragicness of the day, and then just the kids. The kids are what upset me. That's what makes me frustrated, and that's when I get mad at God. That's when I get bitter because they don't have him here. And it's like they have so many amazing male figures in their life. Like they have more positive, influential, wise male figures in their life than most kids have with a dad. So I know they're okay, but there's nothing that's going to replace their dad or Joshua. So even if they had a stepdad, it wouldn't be any different to me than their relationship with Joey or their uncles or my dad or anything like that. Like I get angry and bitter that they don't have Joshua. And I get angry and bitter that Joshua didn't get to experience all the things and the moments that I experienced with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, here's a quick question. Do you spend a lot of time telling your kids stories about Joshua or looking at pictures like photo albums, or do you kind of not do that?
Oh, now we do. Yeah, now we do.
Okay.
It was just within
Didn't you show her a picture every night before she went to bed?
Yeah, well, his picture's up. It probably looks creepy to them. They've always had his picture. In fact, I don't even know if his picture was up the funeral ones that first week in the house.
You definitely almost immediately would show her a picture before, and because you would make a joke saying, tell daddy that he's hot or something like that, just joking around.
Yeah.
Because I remember her spending the night at our house and me looking for a picture of Joshua on the computer so I wouldn't mess up the routine.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the time frame right, because I know that in the very, very beginning I was sensitive about what pictures they saw of him. So
Why is that?
Because it was just so fresh. Like she was getting wounds cleaned, and we were having to like hold her down and clean her dressings and stuff, and the last thing I wanted was any sort of like relapse of her having a flashback of what happened and then freak out. So I want to say that there were no pictures up at that point, but once we got past the funeral and stuff like that, we and even in our prayers, just not with the picture, but I would, if they ever spent the night somewhere, I would have whoever the person was go up to a picture. And I remember my sister did the same thing. She was looking for a picture of Joshua, so that way, because I would have Hannah Ray say, we love and miss you, Daddy. You're always in our hearts. That's like our nightly thing. We say that every night. And then I used to make them say, and you're hot. I have since stopped making them say that, but I did do that in the beginning, yeah. I would make them say.
So how old was your son when this happened?
He was 7 weeks old.
And he was in the car?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my
Have doctors told you that they should not have made it? Like, do they see it as a miracle, or just car seats are kick-ass?
I think that his car seat was kick-ass, and I think that it was just a miracle because I think that somebody said his car seat detached from the base.
Yeah. That's what I heard too, either from you or somebody else.
But
like they were worried about George initially, correct?
Oh yeah, the cabin that they were in though was so untouched. Like,
yeah,
that part of the car was like nothing ever happened. It wasn't crushed or anything. The only thing that Hannah Ray had burns from her seatbelt, and those are some pretty bad burns that she had, and she still has scars from them. But George, it wasn't so much even the car seat popping out of the base or anything like that, but it was more so it's like shaken baby syndrome. So, the impact of the car hitting the other car, and if his car seat did detach from the base, that was more so their concern because he had a bleed in his brain. And they said that's basically what happens when kids have shaken baby syndrome. And so for him, they were really worried about him. They monitored him. He's totally fine, though.
So I want to go back a little bit with the supernatural stuff. You've said that there has been multiple times where you're convinced that Joshua was interacting in some sort of way. I mean, am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
Like, any examples you want to share?
Oh, there's so many of them, and like I said, I write them in the blog, so I don't want to screw it up because I'd have to reread it. My memory is like horrible.
It is horrible. You have a horrible memory.
I have the memory of a goldfish. So that's...
And she's your personal assistant, too?
So
she used to be, Jerry.
He used to be, okay.
He fired me.
That makes more sense.
No, I had to write all of this down because when I went through Grief Share at our church, they said, write it down because you'll forget. And we know you're going to think to yourself, how could I ever forget? But you do, and things get foggy. So I've written everything down. So to get the accurate story, it's best to read the blog. But there are so many times where Hannah Ray will say something to me. I mean, even George, he goes, Mommy, this was like a couple months ago. He said, Mommy, we were going to go on a picnic with Daddy before he went to heaven. And I've never had that conversation with them. And the people that are in my kids' life that I allow to like speak into their lives, they don't volunteer that information. And if they do, they tell me. Like Joey will tell me whenever he has a conversation that is a little bit out of the ordinary regarding Joshua. So for George to randomly say something like, we were on our way to a picnic and Daddy went to heaven, it's like, is Joshua talking to him or somehow communicating that to him in a way so it's like a happy thing? Hey, we were going to go on a picnic, but Daddy went to heaven. And
that's where they were heading?
Yeah, they were in the car. They had packed a picnic lunch and everything, and they were on their way to pick me up. And we were going to go have a picnic with the dog and the kids and all that stuff. So it was something that wasn't public knowledge. And so for him to say that to me, I looked over at him and I was just like, oh, yes, this is true. We were going to have a picnic and, such and such. And then Hannah Ray will say things, or her teachers will tell me that she says things like she's on the playground and she's swinging on the swings and her teacher is standing there and Hannah Ray says to her, she says something like, oh, look how high you're going, Hannah Ray. And she's like, why I can go so high? And she says, why? And Hannah Ray says, because my daddy's up there. You can't see him, but I can. And he pushes me on the swings, and that's why I can swing so high. But you can't see him, and she wrote me a letter and told me what Hannah Ray had said. And there was another night that...
do you think imagination, or do you think, wow, he's
I don't know.
pushing her?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to be that person that says I know 100% that Joshua's pushing her, but regardless, if that's what she thinks and that's what she's feeling, or if it really is happening, it doesn't matter to me because that's a happy thought for her with her dad.
Right.
But
Definitely.
I've never said that to her. I've never said, "Oh, you go so high because Daddy pushes you." I mean, yeah, granted, kids have great imaginations, but some of the stuff that they say, it's just like so above and beyond what, and she was 4 at that time. For her to like kind of really come out with that, it is just kind of a little bit out of the ordinary, but I can accept the fact that maybe it's her imagination, but like I said, regardless, it's a happy thought for her, so I'm grateful for it. But the last blog entry that I made was one of the craziest ones, of just like her talking to me about how she said, "Daddy is always with me. He sees me when I go into big buildings." And I was like, really? And so it's almost like, I don't know, it's like he's with her, or she senses his presence in some way, shape, or form when she's not with me.
Yep.
And she doesn't talk to me about it unless I ask something, and she'll say something, and then I'll ask her a question. And I of course read the book Heaven is for Real, so I make sure I don't probe anything.
Well, that little kid was a liar, right?
Little punk. I don't ask her. I ask her open-ended questions that don't give her an idea of what the answer should be. I just say, "Well, tell me a little bit about that." But it's stuff that it's like it's normal to her. Like it's almost as if she has this relationship with Joshua that I don't even know about. That, and maybe she just imagines it. Maybe it's real. I'll never know, but I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. So just we have such a professional studio right now. You're going to hear music in the background because there's live music on the other side of the wall. So hopefully you enjoyed it.
I'm trying to remember. There have been other supernatural things that she's done that I can't remember.
I think there's definitely been some times where you've told us that there's been days where it almost feels like he's interacting with you, whether it's like, I don't think this was an example, but stuff along the lines of I can't find my keys, and all of a sudden they're just there, and I swear that I checked there, just things like that.
I mean, I know there's been times where around certain anniversaries or certain days, or if I'm having one of those days, like, or if I'm doing something that we used to do or go to a certain place, whatever, like a certain song will come on. I know that for a long time right after his accident, the exact same song was played on the radio every single time I got in the car. Yeah. And that was just like crazy. And I know some people might think, hey, that's just you searching or reaching. But if that's the case, then fine. But there's got to be a part of you that wishes and wonders if that really is them just interacting and saying, "Hey, I'm here. I know what you're going through. I'm here. You're doing a great job." And just like, "I love you. I'm here." I would hear songs on the radio, and it wasn't just songs. Like, it was like a specific song all the time that I wouldn't normally hear on the radio or on a station that it should not be on.
Yeah. So you are obviously stating the obvious. You're a changed person, but I mean, I can't tell you the number of times. It's almost like clockwork. If I talk to someone that says, "Yeah, I used to be a Christian, I just don't believe that way anymore," I would say 50 or 60% of those people, once you keep in a conversation, it's like clockwork. My mom died of cancer, and it just seemed really crazy. Just came out of nowhere. Just seemed like a violent death, or my dad committed suicide, or my daughter was only 2 years old and she was killed. And it's like this thing happened, and they're like, I cannot reconcile a loving, all-powerful God that would allow this to happen. So what is it? What's different about Liz in your brain that you don't react that way? Like, what do you think it is about you? Upbringing, or just your personality, your DNA, your biblical knowledge? I mean, what is it?
I don't know. I think that's just something that I would consider a gift, because I don't blame those people, and I can relate to it, and I've had days where I've felt like that. So I don't know what it is. I just know that throughout the tragedy, and it's so cliche to say, but he brings blessings and, out of horrible situations. And so you question, well, why do you even have to have the horrible situations? Of course, I ask myself that all the time, but it is what it is. It happened. So from here on out, I can choose joy and find the blessings in it, and live how God and Joshua would want me to live, or I can choose to not look for the joy in life and not look for the blessings. And I think that that's probably just a product of being around an amazing church family. I mean,
your pastor's unbelievable. He is a really awesome guy.
I think that, God prepared me for that day, March 18th. He brought us down here, and he put us in a small group, and he put us in a church that pushed us and to grow, and that challenged us, and really taught us just like a whole new way of living like Jesus, and not necessarily being, a religious person, but just being like a caring person. We learned so much in the years that we had here before Joshua died, and I feel like God was just putting on the layers because he knew what was going to happen. He was giving me that foundation to equip me with what I needed to have to be able to handle it. So it was a village, and there are people that have gone through what I've gone through, and they've not had that village, and my heart goes out to them because I don't know how they would survive. I don't know how they do it. I mean, some people say to me all the time, I don't know how you do it, you're so strong. And I'm like, I have literally a village of people that are like feeding me, thinking for me, helping me, guiding me. I mean, it's, I think, just a product of the surroundings that I've had, the people that I have been surrounded by, and the group of friends I have, the family, all that stuff. I don't really think that it's anything that it's courageous of me. I don't think it has nothing to do with me. Let's just say that. It's not me. It's just...
Yeah. So obviously with something like this, people are going to change, and they're going to change for the better. They're going to change for the worse. Like, what would be some things personality Liz-wise that you could be honest and say, yeah, this is just the sucky part of what I've gone through, and here's how I am not as good as I like.
Yeah.
I'm not as this as I was back then, or I'm worse at this than I was back then. Like, are there things on the tip of, like, low-hanging fruit that you just recognize right away? Yeah, I suck at this now.
Yeah, I suck at, just wanting somebody else's life and wishing that they would appreciate the life that they have. I'm probably, I have a tendency to have more bitterness. I know for a while, I even had to tell Priscilla, like, it was hard for me to be around families. I was like not wanting to hang around with the mom, the dad, the 2 kids, and the dog. Right. I was like, F your family. Right. I don't want to be around that. I don't want to hang out with your family. I want to be around other people that, are more like me. Right. So I'm not reminded of what I'm missing and stuff like that. But I think probably just more bitterness. But even with that bitterness, I can remind myself, okay, you might be bitter, and you can allow myself to have those moments where I'm like, that sucks. And for, a few years, I didn't want to hang around families. I kind of became a hermit and didn't want to participate in all the things that we participated in before, because it was with all of our married small group people, and I didn't want to be that person that didn't have Joshua there with me. So I definitely secluded myself and didn't go out, and just wanted to kind of be by myself with my kids. So I think the bitterness, but at the same time, I've been able to appreciate life a little bit more. I follow a blog from another widow, and she talks about how being a widow is a gift. And when you first think about it, you're like, right, sure, whatever.
That lady's full of shit.
She's crazy. But in all honesty, like, it is a gift, because without that, I would not just cherish every single moment that I have with the people that I have in my life. I mean, and I already came from like the, Leave It to Beaver family, and people would joke and say we grew up in Disney World. Like, we would say I love you before we left a room. So for me to go from there to even more so treasuring every single moment and every single day, knowing the importance of how you say goodbye to somebody in the morning or how you say goodbye to them at the end of the day. I mean, that, and just even in the midst of me screaming at my children because they're not listening for the 50 millionth time, I can go to bed and just say thank you, Jesus, so much for these little blessings that I have. And I would not be as grateful, because I'm sure I would still be yelling at them if Joshua was here. I would still be a mom. I would still have all the same hurdles to go over, but even if I would still have all those difficulties, even if Joshua was here. But with him not being here, I can appreciate, at least I have these two little babies that just like are like the light of my life. And I don't know that I would appreciate them as much. Like I would like to say I would, but you don't really know, and I won't know, but I do know that I appreciate things a little bit more, and I think that I don't sweat the little things as much, and I really try hard to remind myself when I start to feel sorry for myself that it is a gift, because it's showing me I can love in a different capacity that other people can't unless they've gone through a tragedy like that, because you love deeper, I think.
Yeah, and I would actually say that what you said as far as wanting to stay away from families, I think to everybody that would make sense, but I would push back a little bit and say I actually think that you were around families more than I would have been in your shoes. I mean, so I don't know if that was maybe you trying to push yourself to I think maybe it was keeping your kids in those sorts of environments, but
that was for them, not me.
Yeah.
I have a kind of a morbid question to ask.
Dude, you can't top mine, man.
No, probably not. But this is out of curiosity. I mean, like, how special, how important is like the death spot? Like, I know for me,
that's exactly what we call it, the death spot.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that would be immensely special. Like, that would trump like his funeral or his cemetery plot. Like, I would actually probably go there and pay my respects as opposed to.
So, Jared, that shows our common bloodline, because I have not visited his graveside once. I have no desire to, and that's not even like, oh, I would just cry too much. It's just like, yeah, dude, you don't know how many times I have jogged. I've been on James Island, and my whole purpose is to jog to that spot and just sit down. In fact,
that guy.
Yeah, listen to this. So this was months afterwards, and we were actually staying at a condo on Folly Beach. And so I jogged out there, and there was a girl that had been to our church just a handful of times, so she knew who I was. So I'm just sitting there. And, dude, talk about a super annoying exchange. God bless her heart, and I don't think she's listening, but if she is, totally, you're a wonderful person. But just understand where I was at. I was very depressed, very sad, and I was sitting there, and she stops her car, walks out there, and she's just like, hey, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm okay. And she said, seriously, are you okay? And I said, no, I'm okay. And she's like, do you know who I am? I said, oh, my gosh, I do recognize you. And I was like, you're so-and-so from, our church and everything. She's just like, yeah. And she's like, so you're okay? And I was like, well, this is actually where my close friend died in a car wreck. And she was like, yeah, I know. And I was like, okay. She's like, so you're okay? I was like, yes, I'm
Social
okay.
Happier than ever.
Did she want me to come to a point where I was just like, no, I'm not okay. This sucks. So, all right. So, Liz, answer his question. Is that a special? You have to drive by it every single day of your life.
I don't have as much sentimental value as Morbid Joey about the death spot. I think I went to it once and pulled over and smoked a cigarette. The fact that I have to drive by it every single day is
nothing special about it anymore.
I really need to get over it. No, every time I drive by it, there's not a time that I've driven by it that I haven't thought about it. And like that post-traumatic stress that I have from that day just kills me. Like if I'm in the car with somebody else, they're probably not even going to notice it, because it's like a minute and then 2 minutes and then 3 minutes and then the rest of the day. Like I'm thinking about that whole day and the sequence of events over and over and over. Some days it doesn't last as long, but other days it just wrecks me for the whole day, and then I can't function. And then I get to work and Joey asks me more questions, and I'm like, Joey,
you can't escape.
I'm like, Joey, I cannot function. You cannot talk to me right now if you want to get any of your work done. So I think that day that Hannah Ray and I drove by was a blessing for me too, because I think about that when I drive by it also. I think about how she saw him and the excitement on her voice and the happiness, and the last memory or thought or sight of him was joyful. So I focus on that. But I do obviously think about it every time, and I think it's more so my heart goes to my mom, because she's the one that was there and walked up, found the car, saw Joshua dead in a body bag. I think more so for her. It's harder for her to go by that spot than it is for me, I think. So that's part of like my thought process as the, day goes on. Like sometimes I can get to Harris Teeter and I've kind of calmed myself down, and sometimes I get all the way to work and I'm still thinking about it. But I keep reminding myself about that little gift of that day where Hannah Ray was so happy to see Joshua. So, but in that, I think about Joey and the dead spot when I drive by it and how he likes to go there. And I think, like my mind just races, but literally it's like a million of those exact same thoughts run through my mind on a daily basis, because I drive by it multiple times every single day. So the fact that the tire marks are gone makes it a little bit easier.
I was just going to say that was actually a huge monumental time of my life when they repaved it. I was like, well, there's a connective point that's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me that was just like, well, that's good. But then there was a part of me that's just like, no, that's supposed to be that way.
I got mad. I was like, you took those tire marks away.
Right. All right. Jared, imagine this. So Liz, I want to speak super highly about I won't get into that. That's probably something. Anyway, imagine Liz.
Wait, I want to know what you were going to say.
I can tell you later.
So does our entire audience now.
Right. So Liz shows back up to, work. I don't know if it's 5 months, 6 months. Probably, no, I think it was less time than that. Imagine now she's sitting at a desk and she gets a phone call and someone's like, can I talk to the pastor? My boyfriend and I just broke up and I really need to talk to someone. No, seriously. So that's the sort of stuff that Liz had to work through of, will you please not talk to our pastor right now? He's got other things that he needs to worry about, which you've had to figure out how to live life in a way to where you don't just dismiss that stuff. But I actually feel like you have a perspective, though, that is, I don't know, necessary in those situations. I mean, you've been given something that everybody else does not have. So,
yeah, I mean, I can say things to them to kind of put their own argument or situation in perspective, but at the same time, it's their journey and they're going through that, and it's just as real to them as it is not important to me.
Remember that time when one of my appointments did walk in the door and you said, hey, whiny bitch, he's got 5 more minutes left?
Yeah, I did not. I did not say that.
Jared, I'll say this from, as a Christian, seeing Liz undergo this, no matter what, it's like death is so ruthless, and it's ruthless from a practical standpoint of we don't get to go on a picnic all the way to a profound, my kids don't get to know their dad.
Yeah.
And it's an immediate inheritance. Like Liz in a split second inherited something that people have now watched and looked at and viewed and observed, and it's like Liz can fumble it and do a horrible job, or she can do a mediocre job, or she can try to steward it well, or she could say, I don't want this responsibility. I don't want, and I'll just say that in these sorts of situations, people are going to learn from someone in Liz's position, and they're either going to learn good stuff or they're going to learn bad stuff. And I just think that for someone like Liz to have been able to say, I serve God not because of what God is going to do for me, keep me from, give me. I serve God because He's God and He loves me, and to be able to see the blessings and all this and stuff. Obviously, Liz, I don't have to tell you that you didn't walk through all this stuff perfectly, but it's definitely been in a way to where, I've been a learner. I would say most of the people in our church have been learners, and so it's the cycle of life, man. I had someone tell me it's just like we're all in line to die, and we're in line to see our loved ones die. And, because his mom died of cancer, and he's just like, I could be like, this is just so unfair, and how could you do this, God? And he's just like, but then all of a sudden it hit me. It's just like we're all in line for the same thing. But
well, and I would also say, I know, like in one of your questions, you said like, how do you like talk to people who say they don't want to serve God after something like that has happened? And I don't even look at it in their season. They're not even thinking of serving God. And I think our God is such a loving God. He doesn't even care if you're serving Him. He just wants you to be open to Him at that point. And so, like, if you have somebody in your life that is going through a death of a loved one or any kind of tragic situation, it's not, the focus isn't so much like, are they still serving God? Because I think that almost makes you feel like it's like you're obligated to be doing this for Him, and in your eyes and in your rawness, you're like, you just did this to me. So instead, I would say it's more so about somebody still allowing God to just be in their life, and not necessarily what you have to do for God, but what you will allow Him to do for you, and just to be there with you. I think that's all He wants.
Yeah. Well, Liz, we're happy you've been able to move on, and we
get over it.
We definitely want to remind you that you are young.
There's plenty of fish in the sea.
I mean, there's just, golly. Now, Liz, we thank you for your time. And
thank you for not making me cry.
Yeah, hey, you did a good job.
I took a Clodipine.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this, and if not, you're a very sterile, flat character. No, flat, is that a word? Sterile is definitely.
Flat character.
All right, awesome. We'll catch you guys next week when we talk about people that are not able to move on like Liz has.
What did you say? Why didn't you stay? Here lie all the photographs, all that I remember, taken under, sent asunder. How I drift through history, a small Sargasso Sea, rising, sinking, still I'm thinking. I hear their voices, sirens singing in the street. I thought they might be calling out for you, for me. I hear their voices, sirens calling out, emergency, for you, for me, for you, for you, for you, for you, for you, for you, for me. For you, for you, for you, for you, for you, for you, for me.
Guys, thanks for being on this. Let's just hey, let's call it a journey. Thanks for being on this journey with us as we've talked to Liz 2 episodes in a row. I'm sure you enjoyed these discussions, in a different sort of way, Remember to visit pastorwithnoanswers.com and check out the show notes for this episode, because there's a link to Liz's blog where she's reflected on all of this stuff, sharing some details that you didn't get a chance to hear in this interview. And join us next week. We've got a doozy for you, the most non-controversial issue in the church right now: homosexuality, gay marriage, and all the sexual orientation stuff. I bring on 2 of my closest buddies and my closest buddy, Priscilla, my wife. So, see you then.